Jimmy, you must have a dull life, I was imagining.
I think like sports were not in season. I don't have a lot going on. The Indians were out of the playoffs. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
We're on, Mike.
We are on, okay. I will call this meeting to order, Commissioners, for Tuesday, or Thursday, December 13th. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Thomas, please.
Please bow your heads. Lord, in this holiday season, please remember those who are serving our country and are not able to make it home. Protect them, keep them safe. Also, protect those who are in need and open our hearts to their needs. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Herschel?
Here.
Commissioner Stacy?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Yay. Okay, we have the pleasure of having the Veteran Services Group here today. We're gonna let them speak first so they can probably leave.
We are going to vacate after we're finished. If that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to be here. Good morning. We always like to have a face-to-face once a year with you about budget time so that you know where we stand when you grant our budget. Last year, you had a return for every county dollar you granted in our budget that we spent. You got 38 federal dollars returned to the county. So that's a pretty good return for the money that you're spending. And we love the relationship that we have with you and as far as working in the county. And our door is always open if you have any questions for us.
Okay, and ours too. Thank you very much.
Can you have all your distinguished guests introduce themselves so for everybody?
Absolutely, I'd love to. These are my board members. I'm missing one, Skip Cron, the president. He couldn't be here today. But if you'd stand and say your name and who you represent so they know.
Gwen Schuball. I represent VFW.
I'm Jody O'Million. I'm the at-large member. Took Pete Ringle's seat.
I'm David Young. I'm the vice president of the Veteran Service Commission. I represent the Vietnam Veterans of America. Our chapter is located in Fostoria, which works out very nice to cover our county and cover the needs of the veterans that are over that direction.
I'm Rex Malad. I represent the MVets.
Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for having us today. Thank you for entertaining us today. And we'll skedaddle now.
And before you go, because this has been sitting here for weeks and I keep forgetting to mention it, we had a donation to the county from Frank Sanchez of a flag that the family wanted us to have to fly over. So if you guys needed whoever to put it to use, they preferred it to be put to use versus.
Do you want to fly it on the new Justice Center?
We can do whatever with it, but I just wanted to acknowledge it here. This is how we came to the flag that we had from the Hagrid family that we used at the topping out ceremony for the Justice Center, and then it is in the time capsule. But that I just didn't want to just take it. We wanted to at least mention at a session. So perfect that it worked out to do it here. So I don't know if you guys have use for wanting to fly it, or we'll use it at a county building at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, we can
Because we're all the
certainly
time-
fly it, but I think that if you put it in the center of town, we'll have more.
Okay, we'll keep it and utilize
More
it
people
with the
will
county
see it.
downtown with, like I said, we're all the time, obviously, they become battered and worn and we have to replace them and so forth, so we will be able to do that, so we appreciate that.
Just
Dave,
a moment, if I can.
Yes,
We want to thank you for coming to the Veteran of the Year program. It went very well. Jim Speaker, of course, very deserving of that distinction. We've had a number over the years. We've had quite a few that have passed away, but every year we seem to find a very good veteran to name in that position. So we're glad that you got to come and see that. We also have a program for the Vietnam veterans. It's a commemorative dinner that we have, and we don't invite you. It's for the Vietnam veterans, and we pin, put a 50-year pin on each of the veterans that come to that meeting. We have a dinner for them too, and welcome them home, something that they may not have received when they returned from Vietnam. So, a lot going on. The population of veterans has dropped a little. We're at about, I think, 3,800 veterans now, which dropped about 100 over this past year for Seneca County. And it probably won't increase. We're losing the World War II and the Korean veterans, and so I hate to see them pass. But that's what is happening, I guess. I guess that's about all I have to say. Again, I really appreciate you guys making it to our program.
There was a nice event Saturday too. Jim Noller was still talking about it Monday morning at breakfast, so he was beaming from the, I don't know exactly what the award was, but I know it had to do with the Korean War, so he was still very happy, yeah.
It was just recognition for the 3 Korean War veterans. It wasn't an award. It was just a recognition for that event, saluting the veterans.
Yeah, but they were still glowing on Monday night, Tuesday morning.
We do. If the programs turn out good for our veterans, we're very happy. And I think in the long run, I think most of them do turn out very, very good. We have very few complaints. So.
Good.
Nice.
Well, thank you for all that you do for the veterans. We really appreciate it, and obviously the county sees a great return on investment from the investment that we make, and we're proud to be a part of your organization.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys. So the reason we're able to vote is because of the veterans.
you.
Let's bring the
Bye.
Board of Elections up to talk about that.
Nice segue.
Nice
See ya. Thank you.
We have a pause here, evidently.
She's gonna grab her sheets.
Okay, you're on.
So you folks had some questions for us in regards to our quotes. So I'll let Jim kind of go over the answers
Good.
that you had. So we've got those answers
I
ready.
talked to the guy down in Columbus, so see if your answer's the same as his.
We also, we got our answers, they and the vendor. You asked about the upfront funding for years 2 through 5 on the software, because the auditor may have a question on, can we pay in advance? That is simply, it's not really upfront, well, it is upfront funding, that's the way they're billing it from the vendor, but the contract is from the Department of Administrative Services. It says it's a 5-year maintenance. So the vendor just said, okay, well, and this is what it's gonna cost. But the Department of Administration Services flat, they put that in their side of the contract.
So it's
from the state,
non-negotiable.
that there will be a 5-year upfront maintenance and they will cover that maintenance. So for that, years 2 through 5 are primarily covered through that contract. And that's why it's not really, we're not paying year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 ahead. We are paying the Department of Administrative Services negotiated big deal.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We are paying years 2 through 5.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so,
But it's not, shouldn't be an auditor issue because the way that the state.
well, it's not an auditor issue. To me, it's an issue of time value of money. I'd rather have it in our pockets for 5 years and spread it out over 5 years, than to pay it all up front. So, I mean, when we say that's non-negotiable, is that absolutely, we can't pay them on
If we decline
an
the grant
annual?
from the state, we don't have to take years 2 through 5.
So we can't pay them on an annual basis. It's,
No, that's part of how they negotiated in to get the grant.
okay. All right, so it's a 5-year cost. So in theory, I assume we could talk to the auditor about amortizing that over 5 years, huh?
That's what we're paying it. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
That was one of the questions I had sent to them, and
Right.
was, would it be an audit issue? Because the way it's contracted, apparently would not be an audit issue.
Shouldn't be. We do have Derek reviewing that contract right now, so we've got the prosecutor reviewing it all, but there's two separate contracts and he's got many other things on his plate, so we'll meet with him soon and
I just, yeah, I don't know
All
about,
88 counties have to adhere to that, so.
yeah, I mean, it's a question whether it's cash or accrual accounting, and I think that the county's pretty, Fonda County's pretty much on cash accounting, so that would make it difficult to amortize. All right,
yeah. Same with the annual fees. Some of the annual fee, obviously, we're gonna have an annual fee a little bit for starting in year 2. The big chunks start in year 6. After that 2 through 5 maintenance agreement part kicks in as well. And those,
so we're, Jim, let
there
me
wasn't a
stop
whole
you
lot of
again.
negotiation anywhere I could find on that.
We're gonna have some, besides the maintenance agreement, there's gonna be some additional fee years 2,
There's
3,
some parts
4,
that are
5.
negotiated in the DAS, and then there was a fee, it was in your quotes,
Yeah,
which is the annual, and that's just part of the annual software license and firmware and maintenance.
okay.
It's beyond what was in the DAS.
So that was the 16,650 or the 18,605, depending which one of the two we had currently looking at,
Correct,
and that's 2, 3, 4, 5.
correct. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, those are all in there. And right now, we are paying just under 30 a year for that, and it's going to go up well beyond that after year 5.
Well, see, here's, I mean, the situation with us is very simple. I think all of us had the same, little bit of sticker shock. Because we had put money aside, as you know. And knowing that the equipment, I think the original estimate was gonna be somewhere between $700,000 and $800,000 for, you know, some of the good stuff that we thought about. This all comes out to about $1,300,000, I think, when it's all said and done. By the time you add the maintenance costs back in and the monthly, or and the annual service fees, where did I get that number
I
from?
think it's around $1,100,000.
Now, I've got it written down here. Yeah, that was time you put the annual fee in, I guess.
Yeah, if you put the annual fee in, along with the maintenance fee, and the cost of the equipment up front, over that 5-year period, it comes up to about $1,300,000, I think.
Yeah.
And even if you take the $18,000 a year out, it's still $1,200,000.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's where our sticker shock came in here.
It was a
And
little
the-
sticker
and the
shock
state
to us
is-
too after DAS came back, because we
Yeah.
had the prices pre-Department of Administrative Services. This is what the vendor thought it would be, and when it came back, we actually came out higher and not lower.
And the
We're
state is
surprised.
covering 642,
State is covering 648, I believe.
648, 392, 82.
okay.
What is the life expectancy of this equipment? Have you had that dialed in?
The vendor says 10 to 12 years. So we should be good for about the same amount of time we've had the current equipment, which the county acquired starting at the end of 2005, actually got it in service for 2006. So, and they don't want to do that on an even numbered year again. They want that in for an odd numbered year so that everybody gets trained and on it before we get to a presidential year.
And what's our timeline to act so that we can be prepared for the 2020 election?
We would need them in place 90 days, we need them in place by February, so we can start getting everybody trained on them for the May election. Understanding that this is an odd numbered year, and if there's no statewide or countywide issue, it'll be just Tiffin and Fostoria. If there's a statewide or countywide issue, then every poll worker's gonna get trained and we're gonna start the process countywide. But we won't know that until the February filing deadline.
But you got township elections too, don't you?
Those will be
General
for the
election.
fall, yes.
Okay, all right.
Townships and the village and city offices are primarily
I mean, I
decided.
know they're the odd year, but there's no, okay, so that's all.
There's
in
no
the-
primary for the townships and the villages.
Okay,
For the cities, that's where Fostoria and Tiffin could have a primary at.
Their charters are different, so depending on who files will determine whether or not they have primaries. And if we have a state issue or county issues or any other levies.
Did you get the impression the vendors are geared up and ready for the onslaught? I mean, I don't know how many counties are going with this vendor versus the other vendor or vendors, et cetera, but to actually
ready
put the
for
order in,
us.
and all of a sudden, we're not gonna get them until April?
They're ready for us.
They're ready for us. They've assured us we can have delivery in February, and we can have directors and staff training in February. So we can be ready to go and hit the ground running for training our poll workers on a whole new system. It should be easier, but we also have to plan for every contingency, and if this goes wrong, and if this goes wrong, and making sure we get through our learning curve, and making sure it all works smoothly.
Have
Because
they
our
come
goal
back-
is to make it a smooth election. The no bad news elections are the good ones for us. That's,
Nobody wants to be Broward County.
Have they come back with you at all to give you any reduction in prices, some of the things that we talked about? He had indicated to me earlier this week that there was gonna be a downward adjustment in some areas.
We asked them to lower the amount of equipment. Together as a team, we're not comfortable with lowering the number of equipment.
So who had asked them to do that?
We did.
Oh, you did?
yeah, we asked in case if it's a true pricing point, there is a minimum we feel we could go down to. Our concern would then be how big are the lines going to be on the presidential year?
Yeah,
Our
okay.
So
governor.
we could have a
president-
half-hour waiting line, because everybody will be voting on these machines now.
Well, he made me believe that the same amount of equipment there was, he was gonna look at that quote again and there was some room.
But
So-
We have not gotten anything along those lines.
we didn't get a return from the vendor on that at this point.
Yeah. You might wanna call him and tell him the ball commissioner asked you about it.
Well, they sent us a fresh quote with the reduced equipment last night.
Oh,
and
did
it
they?
didn't- It did not include anything
It-
from the,
It just took the cost of the equipment off, because
What are we talking there? What's the
we're
delta?
talking about 180 is what we're asking for.
That's-
And
that's-
that's what our board has approved.
Okay.
165 would be what we consider a bare bones.
minimum.
These are not DRE machines, which would be the direct voting machines where
Yeah.
you push the buttons. They also produce a paper trail.
Right.
So the state has ruled that they are different. The state legislature on the DREs is 1 per 175 voters. For that, we would need about 185. We think we can do that on 180 on the presidential years and still have reasonable lines. The vendor is saying we could probably get away with 165.
We're not comfortable with that.
It's just the presidential and governor's years where we have a ton of voters, especially in the heavier areas. We just are afraid that voters are gonna have some comments about waiting in lines because they have to wait to take their card and go to the machine to vote.
You're talking an $80,000 difference from our side of the fence. Over here, that $80,000, when you max that out over 10, 12 years, is not worth the risk of not having enough voting equipment on those heavy elections. You know, I don't want to hear stories that we suppress voters because they had long lines. I don't want to be that county. Elections and presidential and governor years are now taking so much of a national hit and a statewide hit in the news that it's just really nice to kind of fly under the radar and do our job.
We agree. No news is the news we want about
Yeah.
In the,
voting.
as I said, obviously registered voters are, that count before the election because the deadline for that is before the voting day.
Right.
The determination of number of early voting days, hours, all of that good stuff. I know from the legislative update at the conference that there's gonna be some things being introduced to see what will happen because of whatever sunsets with the current Secretary of State's last day in office.
Correct.
And so what they can have in place to, I don't know all the terminology, don't have it in front of me. But even though whatever gets said, there's still always adjustments year to year on what they do with that? Or is that based on somebody filing some lawsuit somewhere?
It's based on somebody filing some lawsuit. On the federal election side, which is the even numbered years, it's pretty well set.
Okay.
It's on the odd numbered year side. The Secretary of State currently runs it a little differently, and the new secretary will make the determination.
Because in that, it was talking about absolutely no early voting on the day before, so that staffs could be getting ready for election day.
Correct.
and that
That
kind of thing
would
versus a
save,
part of a day.
that would save not just that, but a ton of headaches with, okay, we've already sent the equipment out, but now we've had people voting early still in the office, how do we make sure they don't double vote?
And the reason I asked was I wondered if you would know in this precinct that, wow, 50% of the people have already voted, but I don't know if you know that from early voting before election
We
day.
won't know that till, we'll have a trend, but we won't, this last election, we had a trend going, and then some other precincts were the ones that were heavy for the early vote were the same ones that were heavy for the
I just wondered if you, a way to reallocate a machine, but that, okay, well, they're not gonna need 3 over here, we'll put the extra machine over here, but I guess
And we
that's.
can kind of
yeah.
do that, and we talked about that, we can adjust during the day if we have to, if we're finding, but to kind of prejudge is a little,
The problem also would be, once people start
Programming.
voting on any of those machines, they have to stay in that precinct because
Yeah.
the counts are there.
Yeah,
And these machines count as they go, so.
So from a nuts and bolts standpoint, let me go through this again. First of all, when you walk in to the voting area, the precinct you're gonna be in, they're gonna give you UPCs.
They're gonna, right now you walk in, you get a little slip off of the iPad saying that you're an authorized voter, and you take that and you go trade that in for a ballot. Instead,
Right.
it will now have a
Okay.
barcode on that, and they will take that to the voting machine and put the barcode underneath.
So it's amazing, we can all carry credit cards and driver's licenses in our wallet that has every bit of information on that card, right? But we can't get a voter ID card. That's amazing to me.
That's
But-
court order.
So we got a barcode, and I just wanna make sure that everybody understands the procedure. So we got a barcode, and that barcode allows you to access that machine.
That barcode allows you to access that machine with the correct precinct and split for you
Okay.
as a voter.
And then once you complete your vote, if you wish, you can have it spit out a card so you can review it.
Correct,
But you don't have to do that. You can just look at the screen and say vote.
correct. You can say
Okay.
count,
But you have the,
mark and count, or mark and let me review.
because there is some concern amongst folks that they're not gonna be able to actually physically look at that piece of paper.
Yes.
But you're gonna be
Just
able to
there.
print that out and look at it.
And then they, if
And then
they,
reinsert it,
yes, they have to reinsert it then.
and then vote.
and if they don't like it, it's the same process, they take it back to the poll worker and say, I wanna soil this ballot.
I
And
goofed
then,
up, I want a different ballot, and they're allowed 3 tries, so then the poll workers process them another barcode. They void that one and keep that one in a separate
Once you,
voided
but
envelope.
once you read yours, you can't put it back in and make changes on the screen?
You can't make changes on the screen once you read yours, but it's
Okay.
been printed.
All right, see, I thought. that
Now,
you
if
could.
you get a chance to review it on the screen before you hit the print button,
Okay,
you can make all the changes you want until it's printed. Once it's printed, then we got a different issue.
I got you.
And that's part of learning, the learning curve process for our workers, so that they can get this part done next and get it.
So when do you need a decision regarding this equipment? What's the absolute drop dead date to get it done in February?
Early January, the absolute
Middle
drop dead,
Middle
before
January.
the 15th of January.
Okay.
This gets rid of the scanner.
Gets rid of the scanner,
And
gets rid of
the
that auto mark.
auto
that's-
mark.
oh, that
That the
awful
poll
auto
workers can't lift without 3 or 4 of them moving
Yeah, I
it.
know.
It's terrible.
And
So
it
the auto
gets-
mark and the scanner go away.
The
Is there any
can goes-
resale on
can goes
those?
away.
so this is what's the scrap market cost.
Any resale on those?
That's counted in, but they put the trade-in value right in
So
there.
that all goes.
They're taking that as
That's
a trade-in, they
proprietary.
will wipe them out, it's their proprietary thing, and they will probably sell them to, at this point, another country, because our country is pretty well moved beyond where those are at.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the price, but I'm satisfied that we're where we, need to be. So I'm not looking for additional information myself. I mean, they've done their homework, so
Can I just ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
Just because I was looking at the before price and after price, and they're not a huge price difference, but I noticed the flash drives that were, they say are additional, we were only gonna get 3 in the first quote, but it looks like we're getting 45 now in the second quote. I mean, it's not a huge price difference, but it's still, is there a need for the flash drives?
With the system that we're going with, we need to have at least one available per voting location,
Okay,
and then backups available through the day in case those one go out.
so they just didn't put that in the first quote?
Correct.
Well-
They had a couple pieces that just weren't in the first quote.
Or was that because we changed?
We also did, one of the first quotes did not have the machine that actually kept the cards on place. They had a separate scanner, which case that had a memory.
Okay.
With the machines that we voted to go with, the machines and the scanner are all one unit, so we have to have a memory card per location.
Right, and I thought that was the about 820 quote we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that changed the equipment a little bit.
And you'll also notice from the early quotes to the later ones, the people didn't put the barcode scanner on the first ones, and without that, it really didn't do us much good.
Right.
So when they added the barcode scanner, prices had changed.
And the election services, talks about project management, equipment operation training, all those prices seem to have went up, and only the quantity project management went up. I mean, what I understood was state term pricing is that, you know, they agreed to the state term, but they can go lower. So I was just wondering why they increased the cost of those services, whether it was just a time frame. You know, I know sometimes quotes are only good for 30 days.
Right.
Part of
but
that is
this was just a,
raised
it was a
their,
difference, it's an increase.
part of that was ESNS did raise their pricing.
Okay.
And part of that was when DAS got done negotiating with them, that's what we got.
Well, how many different types of machines, how many different companies did you guys look at?
There's a
initially?
total of 6. 3 we didn't waste our time with,
Yeah,
and we
okay.
wouldn't have wasted anybody else's time with those 3. We looked at 3 seriously and then came down to the final 2.
Yeah, I just wanted to establish the fact that this has been a due diligence process over the last
18
year.
months,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
if not 2 years.
I know we talked about it a year ago, or at least talked about getting ready for it.
I think all the way back in 16, we were looking, we just didn't have any idea what the real pricing was going to be.
And we did say, at that point, when we came to some of your meetings, that whatever you do, make sure you get long-term maintenance contracts, because we want to make sure, as Commissioner Thomas said, what's the average life here? Make sure that we've got it followed up, yeah.
You know, there's some intangibles there. You know, we're now not gonna have to purchase thousands and thousands of ballots that are gonna go unused. I think we ordered over 30-some thousand ballots for this last election,
Yeah.
and over half of those go unused, and now we have to store those for 22 months. We no longer have to order those, we don't have to take the staff time to unpack them, check them, put them back in the bags. They're not gonna,
So the next budget will be a lot less for you guys, then, because you see.
there's just some intangibles there that you have behind the scenes that are a bonus. So, you know, there's less storage, there's gonna be some less staff time there, there's gonna be less printing costs, less paper. And I know those don't amount to $1.2 million, but I mean, there are some.
Well, it's a lot of time involved with that, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so there are some other benefits that are on our backside that people don't realize that make things better.
I said, I guess would we just wait till we have the Derek's been through the contract and
He
Yeah.
has it.
Derek's got the
Yeah.
one from DAS, and we're still awaiting the full contract from Election System Software.
I'd just like to have one more conversation with them, talking about, you know, when they were talking about some reductions, where exactly are they?
Sure.
Well, we'll give Craig and
I
ask him
will
about that.
certainly,
Is Craig, is Stretch the one you talked to?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
we will get with him and we will bring that up and see what
Okay.
we can do.
Perfect.
You won't be upset to get it at a lower price, really.
I'm sure of that.
We thank you all for all the time and consideration that you're giving us. I mean, as directors and as our team over there, we're charged with running fair, open, and transparent elections. And we come to you to say, we feel this is the best way for us to do that job for our taxpayers in Seneca County. We know, on the other hand, you know, your duties also include the pocketbook and many, many other factors. So we appreciate all the time and consideration that you have given us and moving us forward.
You only have one board member that wants to just buy pencils, right?
Correct. And a funny story, if we got just another minute, we had to do our audit, which requires hand counting 3 separate precincts. You know, and so everybody's sitting there, and it's been 2 hours, and finally I said, David, is this really what you want to do on election night? He said, no, I want to hire 200 people to do it.
He wanted to negotiate the pencil deal, by the way.
You know, yeah.
I wasn't gonna name names.
No. I did.
I don't care. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Jim,
you
did they
very much.
verify the square footage? Is the square footage gonna be
The square
sufficient?
footage will be sufficient downstairs. It's going to take both of the rooms that are under the double lock to handle them, but there, it will,
That'll work.
it'll work.
Okay, directors?
Thank you.
We'll go,
Thank you, God
and go
bless,
back and
yeah.
talk to Stretch.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. We're not voting for anything before Christmas, are we? No? All right.
No, we're not going on for anything before Christmas.
Yeah.
Although if you vote.
It's only two things, naughty or nice.
That's We got to, yeah, we got a lot of coverage on the naughty side. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, now for the
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Well, I hope so. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't
If
know
you're
me.
not asking us for $1 million, it's fun.
For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Hallie Williams, and I'm the new agricultural extension educator with OSU Extension here in Seneca County. So we've not had an educator for the past 6 or 7 years now, and so I'm your gal in charge here. So any kind of extension, agricultural needs, that's what I'm kind of in that discovery mode right now, figuring out what are the needs of the county, how can I best serve them with extension resources, publications, programs, so on and so forth. So I've been in my position for about 2.5 months, getting to meet with a lot of movers and shakers here in the community, hearing what some of those issues are, some of the things that are needed. I'm excited. I've been in touch with the Seneca County Farmers Market, talking with them. I've also jumped on Leadership Seneca County on that board, and going to be partaking in a heavier board type role. So I'm excited about that as well. Primarily in terms of programming, not a whole lot yet, except for pesticide applicator training. That's our big one each year, that goes from essentially the end of January through March 31st. Pesticide applicators have a very rigorous certification process to make sure that they are applying correctly. A lot of those pesticides are getting updated every 2 years or more, and so they need to be updated with what are the new regulations, how to make sure that they're being safe, they're getting their tanks cleaned out appropriately, they're not over applying on their crop or their neighboring crops as well. So we're going to be going through in our kind of region, it's called our EERA, which I still haven't figured out what that stands for, but it's our region of counties. And so we'll do a team teach model with extension educators from Crawford County, Sandusky, Erie, Huron, Huron, and Wood County. And so we'll go around and do sessions throughout those counties. So we have one scheduled, I believe, for February 13th at Attica Fairgrounds, and then another one for March 12th in New Riddle. So we'll have those done. As I've been working with the community, talking with some parents, I hear that they're really wanting some more opportunities for animal science learning opportunities, specifically on the side of livestock evaluation. So I hear that there is a need for a livestock judging team. I actually competed really heavily when I was growing up through 4-H and FFA, and I actually went out to college on a livestock judging scholarship, and my dad had coached the Wood County team for about 20 years or so. So I'm going to go ahead and charge on and start up a Seneca County livestock judging team beginning in January. Our focus is going to be really just to get those kind of basics, help kids better understand the basics of livestock evaluation, why it's important for them, not just with their 4-H projects, but later on in life too, helping explain the breakdown of livestock and parts, all kinds of good stuff, nutrition, those sort of things that play into livestock evaluation, but stuff that's practical as well, and give them those opportunities. But I'm hoping that we can get them to the Beef Expo contest in March, and then to the state contest, which is also during Seneca County Fair Week at the very end of July. So we'll do some practices throughout the spring, kind of on a bi-weekly before Beef Expo, and then once a month in April and March. April and May, and then June, July we'll hit heavy and go once a week or so. So if you guys know of any producers who would be willing to allow us on their farms to put some classes together, we'll obviously take care of biosecurity, make sure we're wearing boots and being safe and everything. But it'd just be nice to be able to get out on our local producers' farms, see some good livestock, put some classes together, and help really break down the differences in livestock and how to help kids select for their projects. So, yeah, but we're doing lots of moving and shaking, obviously, and still learning a lot about our producers here in the county. Holly and I are going on a big tour today, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, so until we get everything out of the fields, it's been a little bit difficult. If you guys haven't heard, Farm Bill is now on President Trump's desk. But it looks like our ag risk coverage and price loss coverages are still going to be in place. Most of all of our regular programs with Farm Bill. I think this is actually going to be the first year that the year that the Farm Bill is actually due, it's going to get passed in the same year. So, knock on wood. Let's hope Trump signs it today.
Yeah.
So,
forever.
yeah. Do you guys have any questions or?
The beef quality assurance that producers have to go through, that deadline is coming up quickly too, right?
Yes, January 1st. So all beef producers in Ohio, and it's not necessarily required, but it is required of our Tyson and Wendy's buyers, and so essentially it's required. They have to have a beef quality assurance certification. So essentially they can sit through an hour and a half long class and go through basic beef quality assurance standards, talking about making sure we're using our medications appropriately, knowing when and when not to haul livestock, knowing when to treat livestock, so on and so forth, safe handling procedures, those sort of things. So that is required as of January 1st of 2019. And so producers can go to one of our classes that Extension is offering throughout the state. Jason Hartshoe has been putting one on every month in in Bucyrus at UPI. And so I think we pretty much have the majority of our producers covered. I'll make sure that we do a couple this next year. But we do have an additional requirement that'll come on in January 1st of 2020, and that's transportation quality assurance as well. So that's really more so for anybody who's hauling beef cattle, whether it's cow-calf, it's taking a large stock load of for market, or hauling feeder cattle or something along those lines. It's to make sure that we're using those proper handling requirements or procedures. And so that's going to be a push for next year, but we'll probably combine the transportation quality assurance with beef quality assurance in some type of model that hasn't quite been set out by Dr. Boyles yet, but we're figuring it out. So, yeah.
Are you also networking with our agribusiness like Manel and Poet? And
That's
those
today.
folks? Okay.
Yeah.
That's your tour today? Okay.
Yep. So, yeah. I'm very excited about it.
Okay, good.
And something Extension's doing as of with CCAO, I'm staying on the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee, I've been on that for a few years, and we had a conference call with Roger Rennekamp and Adam Ward, who's the liaison with Extension and the university and all, and CCAO about the whole water quality issue. And Extension's is proposing to step up with some things. We're in the Western Lake Erie watershed basin, but the Maumee watershed basin is where the target was at because of the levels of phosphorus, etc. So Extension's looking at, with some funds that they have, we'll get into all of that, but putting some more boots on the ground to work with the producers to identify quickly. There's been ways of doing lots of identification where this stuff's coming from commercially and all of that, but it's been a challenge, and obviously by a few months ago it wasn't up as fast as what our governor wanted to see. So anyway, there is some things being done with that, and there'll be a spin-off to that that'll be benefit to us. Like I said, we're not in that watershed, but there'll be some things, obviously more to come on that. So that's
And
good stuff.
sorry, part of our pesticide applicator training that we have throughout the spring, we also have fertilizer applicator training. That's a shorter course. It's not quite as in-depth because a lot of people are applying natural products, you know. But that is a part of that process as well. So we have many producers who are both pesticide and fertilizer trained, and so we're going to be going through that recertification training process. So, yeah. All right. Awesome.
Hallie, thank you. Enjoy your tour this
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited.
Okay. Okay, so the first, any other old business or any old business?
We never did the minutes,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Did we do the roll call?
We did do the roll call.
Okay.
Move
So
to
we-
accept.
I'll second.
All right, very good. Roll call for that, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes, okay. Now any other old business?
Or an add-on if it's older. It's kind of old, but kind of new. Sunny Farms landfill, so you can see what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Just want to mention, we've had a couple of calls recently, I think all of us.
it's getting pretty old pretty fast.
Yeah. Anyway, I had a conversation yesterday with Tim Wasserman as the director of the Solid Waste District for us. And as we talked through some things, I was just trying to educate myself a little bit more about the history of Sunny Farms landfill, what's going on, as well as I think he sent all of us the contact with EPA, which is the person, you know, we can refer people to him and or to the Tyler at the EPA. But I said maybe we ought to look at maybe after first of the year, having a work session and have Tim come in and talk to us. Because what question comes up is, you know, why do they take this the out-of-state construction debris, drywall, basically, that's kind of the culprit of the smell based on various
Right.
scenarios of weather, etc. Anyway, why that happens, you know, what requires that, because there's an interstate commerce law in place, other things, and he thought that'd be good, so I just thought I'd bring it up here. If you guys are open to that, we can figure out a date and have a work session and just have some open conversation about, update ourselves on why that exists, so that when our citizens are calling us with concerns and that may know more about it than we do about the history, because they live closer, and want to have that discussion, we understand it well.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. You want to give the EPA number too, so it's a matter of, it's on record.
Yes, call for fun. Tyler, Madeker, I don't know how you pronounce that, Madeker, is the environmental specialist with the Ohio EPA, and he is our guy for Sunny Farms when you want to have concerns, and it's 419-373-3078. I'm assuming that is to the Bowling Green office.
For whatever reason, we're start getting calls about the odor.
Yeah.
They seem to be more intensified, or the numbers seem to increase here.
Yeah.
And it's
So-
important to note that we don't have any regulatory authority
Right.
over this,
Yeah.
the landfill. The health department does have some monitoring responsibilities, so they should be involved as well. But,
Sure.
You know, we're happy to help, you know, jump in and participate, but it's not a.
Well, I just know it's frustrating for the citizens, because they call the commissioner's office, and then we refer them, or I have referred them to Director Wasserman, and then he says, you know, they probably ought to be calling the EPA directly, so at least we'll hopefully get one step skipped here.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, I guess museum is kind of old business.
Oh, yeah, 'cause I got some adjustments too.
Okay,
Airport, museum, I want to just talk quickly about the branding invoice and just a clarification on races for 19.
okay.
Some of
Well, let's do raises, I think that's the easy one, so the
Yeah.
question's gonna be.
I had a couple departments for the last few years when we've done the 3%. We also did a contingency that it's 3% or 50 cents, whichever is greater. So I have had a few departments call me and ask, since we didn't say it that way, we didn't, I said, well, I'll be happy to ask. I said, you know, I don't want to
It's been
assume.
standard practice.
Yeah.
We've done that for the last few years, because, you know, I mean, it takes longer if you're not making quite as much, so I think that's,
It's about, well, the math, $17 an hour is the math, you know, so
Yeah.
that's about where the break off is.
so if you're okay with that, I
Yeah.
mean, we'll, I'll let the
I think
departments
so
know.
just try to remember next year, whatever we do, we,
Yeah.
something like that in.
It's a little hard to calculate when I don't have access to employees' records, so I don't know what they make, so I can't determine. So I just put everybody at 3%, and then sometimes there might be some changes if,
Yeah.
you know, some departments have a lot that are under.
You gotta have that access, because you gotta make those decisions.
To be continued.
Copy for Okay. Airport.
Airport, we received a couple invoices from the airport. We had asked Brad a couple months ago if we were going to be receiving any more invoices because the end of the year was coming. He had mentioned the tractor was going in for service, so we were getting low on our purchase orders, so there was a invoice that came in for over $3,000 that we don't have any money in place for. He addressed some of the inspection issues, which I remember we discussed at our meeting with Brad, but our understanding was it wasn't gonna get done until next year. So I don't have any money in place for this bill. And then the tractor, apparently he did the big tractor and the little tractor. We got the little tractor, we had money in place for that. And the big tractor is apparently coming in over $2,500. And we did not expect that. And so Kylie did call him again to verify there are no more bills for 2018 and talk to him about, this is what we were talking about every time we had you come in, is that, your budget is $25,000 and every year we're going over that. And if we have to have estimates, we have to have quotes, we have to have approval. He just calls and says, oh, tractor's gonna need work. Should be just a couple $100. Well, they found an issue in the tractor and went ahead and fixed it. We just don't have money in place. So Kylie said I'll talk to him, or called him and talked to him, and hopefully we'll get that in. But right now I don't have, we only have like $740 left on our purchase order, so I don't have enough for the $2,500 for the tractor or the $3,300. I can probably move some, like we had some remaining dollars left in our insurance premium line. For the liability side, we had some left, so I can either just move that or we could do a supplemental appropriation. Unless you don't want me to pay him and I can pay it next year. But that'll be a court order. I just want to make sure, express my concerns that this is
Well, hopefully, I appreciate the actions of the staff to try to educate what we're trying to understand so that we don't have this happen at the end of the year
Right.
again and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever process is easier to obviously get it paid, we're not gonna have a choice. But that's, you're just close to a $4,000 shortfall.
Sounds like 58.
Yeah, I got 2,500 and 3,300.
No, yeah, over 50,
Yeah.
so, yeah. I was thinking you had some of them. Yeah.
If we just do the appropriation adjustment, then I can do that if it's okay for moving it from the, that insurance line. That'll just go back to the kitty if we don't use it. So it's a sub-app either you guys have to do or the appropriation adjustment I can just do.
Do your appropriate adjustment.
Okay.
It's okay with the appropriation adjustment. You can do it.
All right, we'll get it taken care of then. All right, and then just took the branding invoice quick. I think I emailed them to you. We've got the invoice for $272.50. I was thinking more on the line, we were actually getting some printed documents. I reached out to Katie and she said, no, the templates we have that she emailed us is what we're getting, and we can take those to get printed or print them ourselves. I know I was having issues trying to just get the signature line to work in my email, and she said that she would help. So we've just left it the way we had done it. But I wanted to see what your expectation was. I wanted to be able to get this paid. And maybe I just misunderstood the conversation we had in Fostoria that we were gonna get some actual letterhead or something. So I just wanted to clarify that. So.
Did you have a thought, David?
Yeah, first of all, I apologize if that was the understanding. That was never the intention. The intention
Okay.
was to get it designed. It is a little tricky to get it, once it's installed, it works really well. If you're having issues, let Katie and or me know.
Okay.
And we can have Upwork can install it. So once I got it installed, it works really, really well, and
Okay.
it looks fantastic on the email.
Yeah.
But once you know how to do it, it's like many things in life.
Yeah.
Once you know how to
Yeah,
do
we
it, it's
couldn't- we
easy.
couldn't get
But I
it.
want to make sure that the commissioners, anybody else in the county has the ability to to be able
Before
to
we
access
pay
it.
that, I think we need a little support on that end.
Yeah, no, and that's why I come, so yeah, we're happy to provide that to all. And then you should have also gotten it as the most recent template for the letterhead, also looks great, so.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
a little different.
electronically, and then it really depends on how much you want to print. We don't,
Yeah.
well, actually, at our organization, we don't print letterhead. We use it electronically, and then we print it out as we need it.
I don't know. Ours is normally a little, I mean, the letterhead looks great. I see just the invoices
And
you
then,
sent, and I think those would look great on any
But you can
invoices
get
we
it
sent
printed.
out.
We'd happy to facilitate, I mean, you could probably use any printer, but if you
Yeah.
have any issues with it, let me know.
But the letterhead,
You may want standard letterhead that you have, but based on what you do.
yeah,
That shouldn't be a
ours
problem
is
to
a
get it
little
printed.
different because we have 3 commissioners and we try to put on the letterhead the individual names, and I think what we got would be standard for just a company that doesn't put names. So it's just a little different, that we'll have to probably tweak ours a little bit. I mean, that's up to you guys, I guess. I just didn't think it was.
Well, I think part of the confusion, the assumption came when we had one of, excuse me, one of the initial conversations. We actually brought in sample business cards and showed folks what it was gonna look like, I think. You remember that?
Yeah, we got
I
some.
do, yeah, we paid for that just as a
No, no,
issue
I-
of good
I know
faith,
that, but-
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In retrospect, that's right, but I think the assumption was then, when we saw business cards and we ordered
Oh, okay.
stuff, that we were probably gonna get business.
So our
cards.
largesse
Or
was viewed as
something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as part of the,
So,
okay,
I-
understood.
Yeah, I guess that we just weren't very clear and we should have asked more questions, but, yeah, and the only other thing that I would say that you guys can talk to them is that there probably needs to, the software, at least from what I've seen, looks a little too rigid. In other words, you can't adjust it. If we have our own letterhead that we just like to put the logo on, for example, you know, maybe there's a way to insert that logo without major incident, trying to adjust the software somehow, I'm not sure.
Sure, well, let's, if you want to have a meeting just to see what we can
I
do
think
to
so.
accommodate your needs, I
Yeah.
think we're
Because we'd like to
certainly have
incorporate
an
the lo-
intention
yeah.
for it to be useful, for it to be, and if there are things that can be done without a significant design revamp, we want to make it happen so that you're happy with it, because we think in the end, everybody that looks better and looks professional, it'll be good for everybody. So I'm happy to personally help with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, and the cheapskate in me doesn't want to get rid of envelopes and, you know, letterhead that we already have printed, so.
I can tell you, well, I can tell you that resonates with me. I remember when I worked as part of the Taft administration, we had old letterhead,
Yeah.
and then we had a Microsoft Word template that had X's. So it would be the previous director or previous governor, and then it would be printed below to reuse it. So there's a line somewhere, I don't know where that line is.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And it doesn't sound like you have
Yeah, I
that
think we
issue,
need
but.
some more support, is the bottom line.
Oh, the bottom line, happy to do it. So what I would say is work directly with me. I'll pull in Katie and or Upward
Okay.
as needed so that I can make sure that you're getting exactly what you need and that the service experience is
Okay.
is
And
really
yeah, Katie
positive.
said, when I had asked her some of those questions, she said we could sit down and.
We're a
meet and
team,
go
so
over it.
yeah,
Okay.
and she's, yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to get their thoughts, because I
No,
was
perfect.
thinking
And
we
I'm
were
glad I'm
getting
here.
some
Yep, want
printed
to make sure that it all
printed stuff, so.
works well. Yep.
Okay, so airport branding raises Sunny Farm
And then-
Museum is left.
Museum, great news. The Barnes Deinzer Seneca County Museum Foundation has donated for work to be done at the museum in the amount of $13,585. We're hoping maybe that can go towards the match or some of the projects that we've been looking for the museum.
They had,
One-
they had committed $20,000 earlier, and I remembered their commitment, and they had paid $6,000 and change.
Yep, and those were for the windows that got done, and
Yeah.
those have been paid, and that, we got that. But they wanted to do a contribution of 20,000 this year, so they gave us a check last night at the meeting, and I thought it was great, so I wanted to make sure that we
Recognize them,
them for doing that, so.
yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So that segues into the grant that we have, right? We got a $50,000 grant, 25,000 is supposed to be spent at the Civil War Museum, and 25,000 at our museum. So by our, I mean Seneca County. So the question is, can we separate those two 25s? Because we can match grant for the county museum, but we don't want to match grant for the Civil War Museum, that would be up to them. So David,
I'm sorry, I was writing an email on the last issue.
yeah, I've been back,
I'm trying to deliver quickly. so-
right, I've been back and
Okay.
forth, I've been back and forth with you. The only thing I'm gonna say is, the only thing we need to say is that we need to get the folks in Columbus on the phone that administer these grants and say, this is what we'd like to do, how can we do that if we can?
So we're gonna do that, but, and Stacy and I have had this conversation. In order to do that, we need to have up-to-date cost estimates.
Right.
On everything.
They know that.
I have offered to facilitate that. I've already had discussions
Yeah.
with the Ohio Facilities Cultural Commission on this. I went over with both parties, Stacy couldn't be there, but with both parties on how these grants work. I'm ready to facilitate those conversations, but their task is get the invoices, get the numbers. We'll work, Stacy and I will work together to make that work with the OFCC. So we're ready to get on the phone with them as soon as we have.
Okay, the
all the cost estimates.
situation is.
Yeah.
There is some conversation or disagreement about what we ought to do, right? I mean,
Okay,
we've got a situation in the main house that the electric needs to be brought to code. We
Okay.
need to bring it up to date.
okay.
That does or does not directly affect the carriage house. I say that it does. Because they basically have electricity by conduit back to the carriage house, and it isn't even adequate for the main house. So there's a real concern there. The only way you can turn off some lights in the museum at this point is to flip the switch in the fuse box.
Oh, boy.
This isn't a good thing. There's still knob and tube in there, it's just,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So, do we want to fix windows and put shelving up and paint the place and put new doors on? Or do we want to get the electrical, the bones of the place in shape before we start doing that? That's the conversation. So do we get the estimate for electrical, or do we get the estimate to do those little things?
So what I recommended was that, the proposal that I put together on behalf, it had specific things in it, and the money was allocated, but I don't think that prohibits some flexibility
Yeah.
in submitting something slightly different or different. I mean, we can have that conversation. The other thing the OFCC has said is, they're not going to take wait to talk to you, to take your application, then reject it and say, tough luck. What we're gonna do, what I'm recommending is put together what costs you would like to incur, what expenses you would like to make, what improvements you would like to make now, you being both entities.
Right.
And then let's put that together, and then, knowing the rules, we, put it together, then we say, okay, this is what it looks like. We have that discussion with the OFCC, and they give a green light and say, yeah, that works, that makes sense. Or they say, oh, everything works but this, and then we work on getting it through. So if, what I'm saying is, and this is what I said at the meeting as well, is just tell me what you'd like to do now.
Okay.
And because what happens in the state capital budget process is you put in a proposal, things you'd like to do. They set the money aside if the legislature approves it. And then you have to go through the agency that they assign it to access the money through an existing grant program. So we will be making application through this grant program, which will be describing the project. So it isn't as if they're taking it, and the proposal was written kind of general enough, even with specifics. I think we'll be okay, but even if we're not, they're not gonna reject it. They'll come back and say no, but my recommendation is come up with what you wanna do, and then we'll work on packaging that and getting the money.
Yeah, because, we will. So it's an internal thing. We had a museum meeting last night.
Perfect.
$50,000 will go a long way in taking care of the electrical situation. The big problem, or one of the problems, as we discussed, I assume that would have to be at prevailing wage and those kind of things, and we could get it done a whole lot less expensively than that if it didn't have to be. But I would guess, since the state's involved, it's a prevailing wage situation. At least that's what we talked about.
Yeah, I answered that question about prevailing wage at the meeting, but it's not right in my head with
Okay.
everything going on. It's been several months, and I can send an email to whatever the effect it is today on, just as I go back and look at it.
Anything else? Yeah.
We got 11 o'clock ribbon cutting I'd like to attend, so I can duck out, or I can adjourn for 15 minutes and recess and come back.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with recessing.
Yeah,
You wish?
Recess for 15 minutes and come back.
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not sure what Robert's rules are. I guess I need a motion to do that, or we just recess?
I think we just recess.
Okay. All right, there we go. We are in recess.
Do you have a recycle bin?